Calm returns to Lagos. Curfew eases after days of pandemonium. Nigerian governors deny hoarding COVID palliatives as Serap heads to court. In international news, White House Chief of Staff says U.S. not to control the pandemic as death toll approaches 230,000.
This is ANN News.
I am Olajumoke Olatunji. Lagos State Emergency Management Agency LASEMA has identified a 28-year-old man, Sanwo-Olu, as the only fatality in Monday's gas tanker accident in Lagos State. LASEMA says the incident happened at Fadeyi area of Lagos. Oluf's corpse has been handed over to members of his family. A bit of calm has returned to Nigerian cities, especially Lagos, after more than 2 weeks of deadly protest against police brutality, human rights abuses, and widespread anger over the shooting of peaceful demonstrators. Correspondent Deji Badmus went around town to see what the entire city is like as businesses get back on their feet.
It's the first time in almost a week that Olabisi Alamo would be opening her supermarket for business. She'd been forced to close it because of the widespread protest in the city and the subsequent curfew imposed by the government. She's even lucky to have her business intact. Quite a number of supermarkets like hers were attacked and completely looted in the heat of the protest.
Security is the most paramount thing right now we need in Lagos. We just need everywhere secured first. I feel like with security, we're going to be fine. But Lagos is different right now. Lagos is changed. Lagos has gone back to 8 years or probably 12 years ago. We're really sad about it, but well, we have to start again.
Despite the security concerns, the streets are coming back to life after the government reduced the curfew time from 24 to 14 hours. Businesses, especially the small ones, are reopening, but they're doing so with caution, fearing a possible relapse of protest and violence.
Because of the looters, you don't know what these boys can do. So to me, I believe if government can get a situation calm, it will be better for us, so that we can be able to do our normal business, go around and enjoy ourselves.
The government has now ordered increased police presence across the city and other parts of the country affected by the violence. But given the extensive damage to police stations and security facilities, it might take a while before normal policing activities fully resume. Even though life is gradually returning to normalcy in this city, a lot of people are still scared and are choosing to stay at home. The roads are still not what they used to be. The streets are still not what they used to be. A lot of shops have not reopened. So some people are still exercising caution and watching at the way things play out. And in other parts of the country, we've had reported cases of looting and violence. So the situation is still a bit fragile.
As Lagos State government eases curfew from 6 a.m. to 8 p.m., Governor Sanwo-Olu says as a result of wanton destruction of public assets by hoodlums, rebuilding the state will cost 1 trillion naira. Lagos was the epicenter of the end of the #EndSARS protest. The city experienced massive looting, arson and destruction Wednesday to Friday. Many have attributed these acts to anger arising from the attacks by the Nigerian military on young, unarmed protesters at the Lekki toll gate. Speaker of the House of Representatives, Femi Gbajabiamila, visited Lagos State Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu in Lagos on Sunday, during which they discussed the estimated cost of repairing damages in the state. Among other public assets destroyed are 89 new city buses burnt down in Oyigbo and Bega, where they were parked. Also burnt are the Forensic and DNA Center, the Boshere High Court, local government secretariat buildings, hundreds of vehicles, street lights and other public buildings scattered across the state. Nigeria Governors Forum has denied hoarding food items donated to ease the economic hardship imposed on the poor by the COVID-19 lockdown. The governors say they had kept the palliatives for distribution in case Nigeria witnessed a resurgence of the COVID-19 virus. Some of those palliatives were looted last week from warehouses, but they were kept in different cities across the country. And the violence that upended the #EndSARS protest. Some Nigerians have accused the governors of withholding the food items throughout the early months of the pandemic when the starving population desperately needed them. The Governors Forum says some states were still receiving palliatives from the federal government through the Federal Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs, Disaster Management and Social Development. And while Taraba state government has imposed an indefinite curfew in the state in order to safeguard lives and property, Senior Special Assistant on New Media to the Deputy Governor, Muslim Ariwa, said in a statement essential workers have been informed to carry with them official identification cards to show security operatives on demand to avoid embarrassment. Nigeria Center for Disease Control posted 62 new cases of coronavirus infections in 11 states on Sunday. Plateau State led the pack with 18 new infections. Ogun had 18, while the Federal Capital Territory and 8 other states all recorded new infections in single digits. The new figure pushes up total infections in the country to 61,992. 57,000 coronavirus patients have recovered and have been discharged nationwide. The death toll now stands at 1,130. Nigeria has now tested more than 600,000 persons.
Coming up, African news. South African State Power Utility warns of continued load shedding into 2021. And later, international news. White House Chief of Staff says U.S. not to control the pandemic as death toll approaches 230,000.
You are watching ANN. Somewhere in the world, every second of the day, news is happening. And of course, Nigeria is bustling with news day and night. That is why ANN doesn't sleep. Our eyes are peeled, wide open, so no story escapes our radar. We stay abreast of world events and happenings at home. We keep you up to the minute in the world of sports. We give you information to stay on top of your investments and all the hard facts you need to navigate your day. If you miss us on air, you can keep up to date on our website and on our social media platforms, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at ANN Africa TV. We are ANN, African News Network. We do news right in a truly African spirit.
Welcome back. This is ANN News. Egypt's schools have started the new 2020-2021 academic year amid tight precautionary measures aimed at the novel coronavirus pandemic. Parents have expressed their concerns about the starting up of classes because of the pandemic, despite joint efforts by the Ministries of Education and Health to put in place strict precautionary measures. Correspondent Uzer Hakim reports.
It's the first day of school for this group of students. But it's not like any other year. Parents and educators alike are anxious to keep the coronavirus out of classrooms.
Of course, any parent at the beginning is very worried about the health of their children in school. And in this situation, we have to be extra careful. I take my son's temperature before he leaves the house. We should teach them to use hand sanitizer, to not take food or take stuff from anyone else, to always wash their hands and have the awareness of the virus in everything they do.
Tamer Mahmoud, the owner of El Fardos School in Cairo, says it's a huge responsibility for management to keep facilities safe for students.
As regarding the precautions, we have social distancing between the students. We have decreasing the number of students per class. We have decreased here in our school almost by 25% and keeping a distance of 1.5 meters to 2.5 meters between each student and the other. Some schools have applied different measures, like separating the schools into halves and attending 3 days and 3 days alternatively. In the meanwhile, the Ministry of Education has a collaboration with the Ministry of Health, and they are doing campaigns to increase the awareness of the COVID-19 between the teachers and the students of the classes.
These health measures are not only limited to school premises, but also on school buses. As we can see, seats are kept empty between the children to ensure social distancing, and all on board should be wearing masks throughout the trip. According to government regulations, if 4 students from one class catch the virus, their class will be closed. If the virus spreads to 4 classes, then school gets shut down. Following government guidelines, schools are continuing with online education to keep students at home half the week. But Dr. Mahmoud is not a fan.
Online education can never be a replacement to face-to-face or skin-to-skin, as you say, contact between the teacher and the students. Online education is great for conveying a material, a subject, but actually we are not only teaching material, we are teaching manners, we are teaching how to interact. We are not teaching the students sciences, we are teaching them how to live and how to deal with their life. Therefore, school is a very important place to be.
To ease the financial burden on parents during the COVID-19 induced recession, the government has directed all schools to receive tuition fees in 4 installments and to refund 25% of bus fees to parents. As for public school teachers and staff, they have been given a raise in salaries and bonuses.
South Africa's energy provider Eskom has warned the country to expect load shedding to continue into next year. The utility company says this is inevitable as plants undergo unnecessary maintenance. Correspondent Angelo Kopola has the details.
The utility says that it's had some time during lockdown to tackle a portion of its maintenance backlog.
But this is not yet enough to eliminate entirely the risk of load shedding. There is also more work that needs to be done, but we anticipate that by September of this year we will have performed adequate reliability maintenance to have significantly reduced, but sadly not eliminated, the risk of load shedding.
Some analysts are impressed with the manner in which the new management team has tackled the current situation, despite the legacy issues they face.
We can see here a management team that knows what they're doing, that understands the issues, that can communicate them very effectively. And I was left very heartened by this appreciation that they show to the issues that they face and how they're going to deal with them.
Others are not that impressed, suggesting that the utility isn't being as transparent as it should be when it comes to the status of the power station fleet.
They blame the old plant repeatedly for unreliability and breakdowns and all sorts of nonsense. And today they give us a statistic that their best performing plant is, has been running for 104 days without trips, and that's Komati. It's probably the oldest power station in the fleet.
The organization has also been under pressure to reduce its strong staff complement, as many experts believe that it's bloated.
At the end of the past financial year, the headcount came in at about 44,000 employees. This was achieved through a recruitment freeze. As you've seen, we've been very deliberate in not losing key and critical skills as a result of the recruitment freeze. So it has been a focused but also very deliberate effort to reduce headcount without impacting operations.
Perhaps the biggest issue facing Eskom at the moment is its financial woes, and those details will only become apparent towards the end of the month when their financial results are released.
When we return, international news. White House Chief of Staff says U.S. not to control the pandemic as death toll approaches 230,000.
You are watching
Welcome back. This is ANN News. The U.S. White House Chief of Staff Mark Meadows has said on Sunday the United States is not to control the pandemic despite surging coronavirus cases and death toll in the country. The Center for Systems Science and Engineering at the Johns Hopkins University says the total number of confirmed cases in the U.S. has surpassed 8.5 million persons, and deaths resulting from the virus has risen to more than 225,000 on Sunday. During an interview with CNN's Jake Tapper on Sunday, Meadows said, quote, "We are not going to control the pandemic. We're going to control the act that we get vaccines, therapeutics, and other mitigation areas," end quote. Meadows' statement came one day after Chief of Staff to Vice President Mike Pence and 4 others tested positive for the coronavirus and were quarantined. Former head of the U.S. Food and Drug Administration, Dr. Scott Gottlieb, tweeted on Sunday that coronavirus hospitalization, a critical and objective measure of the disease burden in the U.S., are starting to accelerate, reaching nearly 42,000 on that day. He said criteria for hospital admission has been tightened over time, making the high numbers more concerning. It's exactly 8 days to the U.S. elections, but already nearly 60 million Americans have cast their ballots in early voting across the country. These early ballots have already surpassed by nearly 50% those who voted early during all of 2016. Democrats have been dominating early voting, but Republicans are slowly narrowing the gap. That's because in-person early voting has kicked off in several states, and President Donald Trump has convinced many supporters not to use mail-in ballots with his unfounded warnings about mail voting fraud. Kenosha, Wisconsin was thrust into the spotlight after the police shooting of Jacob Blake that led to his policies from the waist down and subsequent mass Black Lives Matter protest. Now, Black community leaders in Kenosha are calling for change ahead of next week's presidential election. Respondent Dan Williams reports.
Alvin Owens operates 2 barbershops, one in Chicago and this one in Kenosha, Wisconsin. Owens is also a community leader in Kenosha, a city still reeling after events in August saw African-American Jacob Blake shot multiple times by a white police officer and left paralyzed from the waist down. The shooting prompted protests that in turn led to clashes with police. Although the protests for justice continue, the media spotlight on Kenosha has dimmed. But with the US presidential election fast approaching, we asked Owens to invite other community leaders to his barbershop to discuss recent events.
How are you guys coping with our new normal here in Kenosha?
I can honestly say that first week, that first 7 days, it was the anger.
Portia Bennett made headlines after she decided to go off script at a town hall event in the city for the Democratic challenger to Donald Trump, Joe Biden. For nearly 5 minutes, she shared with Biden the pain of her experiences in the city.
It has been a positive, but also, I say, a major negative because I'm a mother before anything. And a lot of people didn't know, in the beginning of all of this, it was death threats and couldn't stay home and had to stay at a hotel. Then I had to literally lose all contact with all family. But the positive is them seeing me do this. The positive is them having something positive to see mommy as this person who's out here fighting for not just them, but all of these babies.
This is the Kenosha courthouse, the focal point for the protests after a police officer shot Jacob Blake in the back 7 times. Although largely quiet now, the scars and the anger remain. Gregory Bennett Jr. is the CEO of Peace in the Streets, another community group in Kenosha. On the to-do list for the next president, he wants some focus on alleviating the heavily disproportionate number of African Americans in U.S. prisons.
First, prison reform. If we're going to work on the recidivism rate, then you need to realize is Wisconsin is the #1 state in the United States for being incarceration of African American males. Mind you, Jacob Blake got shot here. You want to stop and you want to start with fixing systemic racism, start with the prisons.
That is a view echoed by Kyle Smith.
We need reentry programs. We need to be able to help these men be able to get back into society and be comfortable with themselves so where they can show and teach other young brothers. Because, for example, Obama can't reach a cat that's on the street talking about he's 600. He ain't trying to hear what Obama trying to say in Chicago. Like, that's not happening. But a brother who's been there and done that has a better chance at it.
These community leaders say the to-do list is lengthy. Ending police brutality, improving education, economic investment and employment opportunities. And then there is the challenge of getting justice for Blake. They expect that fight will continue, regardless of who wins the election.
The visiting United Nations Special Envoy for Syria, Gil Pedersen, said on Sunday he hopes that common ground could be found to help push forward the Syrian political process. Pedersen made the remarks after meeting with Syrian Foreign Minister Walid al-Mualem in the Syrian capital Damascus. He said his discussion with the minister touched on issues related to UN Security Council Resolution 2254, which was endorsed in 2015 and laid forward a roadmap to politically resolve the Syrian war.
The Syrian people have been living through an extremely difficult period. There have been suffering that has been unheard of. And of course there is only one way out of this, and that is to start to implement the Security Council resolution and to start focusing on the political process. It is my hope that the meetings that I've had here today and meetings I will continue to have, that this could be the beginning of something new.
Pedersen said he hoped for the beginning of something new as he meets with the opposition and the parties can try to find more common ground on how to move the process forward.
You are watching ANN.
Whether in your house, at your office, on your phone or online, we are there. We have the facts behind the headlines. We cut to the chase with the news you really need. We cover every angle. We are the bigger, better news network. We are African News Network. ANN. Watch ANN News on MITV from a truly African spirit. We are on the road every day, canvassing throughout Africa for news you really need. We follow the story everywhere, from every corner of Nigeria to the wide African expanse. We bring you what's making headlines. We connect you with news you can use. ANN, African News Network, in a truly African spirit.
Welcome back. This is ANN News. In sport, Morocco defeated Egypt 1-0 to claim this year's CAF Confederation Cup, breaking out the fifth Moroccan club to win the African Cup equivalent of the Europa League. North African clubs have dominated the 17th edition of the Confederation Club. Tunisian clubs also lifting the trophy 5 times, and Egyptian giants Al Ahly and Zamalek once each. Berkane will defend the trophy next season, while Pyramids go into the CAF Champions League or Confederation Cup, depending on if they finish second or third in the Egyptian Premier League. Lewis Hamilton now holds the record for the most Grand Prix wins with his 92 left for which to play. That is ANN News this evening. Thank you for joining us. For details on these and other breaking stories, visit our website, annafrica.news. Conversation continues on our social media platforms, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at ANN Africa TV. I am Olajumoke Olatunji. Have a pleasant evening.